Hi everyone, this is Mr. Hall, and this is a very short video about the activity of the liver and the large intestine, which is sort of one of the things you have to know for the GCSE for biology on the digestive system. So just a couple of objectives that I'd like to go through with you before we start. First off, we're going to describe the role of the large intestine and the liver in digestion. And secondly, we'll describe and explain the role of bile in digestion, which is something that comes up quite a lot as well. So this is the digestive system. In previous videos, I've talked a little bit about how food moves through this whole organ system. So just to kind of recap it really quickly, so food starts in the mouth, which is over here. So here's where the mouth is, and at this point, this is where digestion starts, both mechanical and chemical. And then after that, food passes through the esophagus for a process called peristalsis, and then ends up in the stomach. Now, the stomach is kind of this organ which is here. And it's got a very low pH, which we're sort of thinking around sort of pH of like a 1 or a 2. And the enzymes that you find predominantly here are protease, which help break down proteins. And then after the stomach, it then moves into the small intestine, which is this wiggly part here. And in the small intestine, that's where nutrients pass from the digestive system effectively into the bloodstream. It's got a bit of a higher pH, sort of around 10, and this is where, in particular, you've got lipase working, which helps break down fats into fatty acid and glycerol. Now, after this whole process, the things which have not been digested or broken down then move on to the large intestine. Now, the large intestine is this much bigger tube which sort of surrounds the small intestine, and then it ends up where food, kind of things which haven't been digested get excreted. So the large intestine is there, and the main thing that gets absorbed here is water from undigested food, and that water can go straight into the bloodstream in a similar way to how nutrients get absorbed into the bloodstream from the small intestine. Now, water moves to the bloodstream via osmosis, where it moves from a dilute to a concentrated solution through a partially permeable membrane, which is the surface of the large intestine. Now, unlike the small intestine, you don't need to actually know a great deal more about the whole process than that, but you do need to know that it is water moving, and you should know from prior learning that that process is called osmosis. Now, the liver is here. Now, whilst it's not exactly a place where food sort of lands in to get digested, it is important. Now, it does a lot of stuff, the liver, and you don't need to know exactly everything that it does. The key thing is that bile is produced here. Now, bile isn't stored there, however, it's just made there. The bile is stored in the gallbladder. Now, you can't see the gallbladder in this picture, but it's basically this little sac here, and it gets stored there. And bile is that nasty, sort of acrid, unpleasant stuff that you can sometimes feel when you vomit. It's very unpleasant liquid, but it is helpful with digestion. Now, the reason why it's useful in digestion is because it helps emulsify fat. Now, emulsification is basically when something is broken down into smaller droplets. So if you think of oil, when it hits water and then you add fairy liquid to it or something and it breaks up into smaller little drops, that's effectively emulsification. So the reason why that's important is because it breaks down or kind of increases the surface area because you've got those smaller drops, and an increase in surface area means that it's easier and quicker to digest and the rate of digestion goes up. So if you think about at the beginning, this is your large fat blob of fat and lipids, which may be in your small intestine. Then bile is added, and remember that's from your gallbladder. And then what it does, it acts as an emulsifier. And that basically means it breaks this down into much smaller drops like this. And when it's in smaller drops, it means that it's easier to digest and break down into the fatty acids and glycerol, which you need for different parts of the body. And that's pretty much it. So I hope that's been useful. I know it's very short, but there's not much you really need to know for the GCSE on this topic. Best of luck with your learning on this.